You would say that this administration still has confidence in Thune as leader?
John Thune was elected by a vast majority of his conference on the second ballot. It's not for us to say or sort of intervene in those deep dynamics, but of course, I think that there's a lot of confidence there.
At the end of the week, Washington empties out fast. Lawmakers, staffers, they're all heading home. But not before they stop here.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Flyote. I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
We've got a lot to get to today. It has been a very busy week in foreign policy, starting with Trump's Iran deal, what the straight reopening will mean for gas prices. Last night, Trump signed the Memorandum of Understanding at Versailles. Big things happening in the world.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, there's a lot of people on Capitol Hill who are incredibly skeptical. This is something we wrote about a lot this week. In addition, we have the mess about Jay Clayton, who is, I guess, theoretically still Trump's nominee to be the director of national intelligence. Trump instructed Clayton not to go to a confirmation hearing because he wants to make sure that his replacement at the Southern District of New York, the U.S. attorney there, will be confirmed. It doesn't look like he will be confirmed. We'll have to see how that works out. But in addition, he now wants the SAVE Act attached to FISA, so he's holding up FISA. This is such a mess, and I don't know how they get out of this, but luckily, we have someone good to talk about it.
Man, we could not have a better person on the show this week to give us an inside look at the White House's strategy and how they plan to figure their way out of this mess. Joining us in the townhouse today is James Braid, White House Director of Legislative Affairs. We are going to be talking to him about all of this, particularly, I think, what's happening on Capitol Hill and how does the Trump administration even view Congress right now?
Reconciliation 3, FISA. End of year legislating, Clayton, the SAVE Act, the filibuster, blue slips, dealing with Democrats. We're going to try to get to it all. We don't have all day. I could talk to him all day about these things, but I don't think anyone would watch. So we're not going to.
It is a very packed show. And after our interview, we'll be joined by our very own Punchbowl News co-founder, John Bresnahan, and NOTUS reporter, Igor Bobic. We'll get right into our conversation with James Braid. But first, a word from our sponsor, the American Petroleum Institute.
Presented by the American Petroleum Institute. Across the country, energy workers are ready to build America's future. But critical energy projects are stalled by a broken permitting process. Congress must pass permitting reform. Learn more at permittingreformnow.org.
All right, James Braid, the White House Director of Legislative Affairs, the front line for the White House on Capitol Hill. Welcome to the Punchbowl News Townhouse.
So glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Anna.
The front line for better or worse till death do us part, right?
That's right.
Jay Clayton, the president's nominee to be DNI, Director of National Intelligence, was on a bit of a glide path. So, to the extent glide paths ever exist on Capitol Hill, things were looking good and smooth. That was until 3:54 a.m. What was it? Wednesday. That's yesterday, I think. Yeah. And the president instructed Clayton to not go to the confirmation hearing because, in part, he wanted to ensure that his replacement, James McDonald, at the Southern District would be confirmed. I don't know if McDonald's going to be confirmed. It doesn't seem like Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand are going to be returning blue slips on Mr. McDonald, but I could be surprised. Is Clayton's nomination still alive?
Absolutely. I think what's happened is the hearing is postponed.
Yeah.
President's been clear. He wants to put in Bill Pulte as enacting under his legal authorities in order to ensure that an agency that Democrats and Republicans have acknowledged is bloated and has too much bureaucracy, right-size it and allow Jay Clayton to be confirmed. And I think at the end of the day, those things will be worked out.
What do you say to Republican senators who will say, and the great thing about your job is you hear from all sorts of people, happy, sad, and indifferent. What do you say to the Republican senators who say they were trying to push the administration's agenda and they got hung out to dry?
I think there are always going to be different bumps in the road, but at the end of the day, we're working and we've been the most effective and conservative Republican Congress ever. You look at the rack up of accomplishments, more CRAs, more rescissions packages. The president achieved a multi-decade goal of conservatives to defund the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. They just passed the second reconciliation bill of the term, ensuring that the president's border security agenda would be able to go forward unimpeded for the rest of the administration. And so, look, there are going to be bumps in the road, but at the end of the day, we're all on one team and we all got a great relationship and we're all working together to carry out the agenda that all of the members and the president were elected to pursue.
So let's talk about Bill Pulte, right? I mean, a lot of skepticism from not only Democrats, but Republicans on him in this role, which is obviously why Clayton was going to be put into the position. Democrats say they cannot renew FISA with him in office. How do you expect to break them on this?
Well, I think the president's been clear. He's pretty tired of being taken hostage. He's taken hostage in September on government funding. He was taken hostage in February on government funding. The Democrats are currently blocking a bipartisan crypto bill that would create standards and guardrails for the industry. Now they once again, president exercised his constitutional powers to appoint people. They had a bipartisan deal with Warner and Cotton and all the other two corners. And the Democrats decided to renege on that because the president exercised his constitutional authorities. I think he's been clear. He's not going to be taken hostage for FISA. And the era of hostage taking by the Democrats and irresponsibly jeopardizing national security, I think, is over.
The other argument is that, listen, I'm a big fan of Congress, as you both know.
I hope so. Yeah.
Have to be working around here, right?
But listen, in this, unless you get rid of the filibuster, they have a say. And what I always say is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? I mean, and they have the ability to say, we're not going to vote for FISA unless you take this person who Republicans and Democrats say is unqualified, Bill Pulte, and remove him from his position. Is that not a legitimate view to have?
I absolutely don't. And I think you make a great point, Jake. This is one of the reasons the president is so focused on changing the filibuster. You can take it out of the Bill Pulte situation and look at what we're facing on September 30th. Appropriations negotiations, once again, are not going well. The Democrats are making unprecedented and unrealistic demands. There are 218 GOP votes for a clean continuing resolution. There are 52 Republican Senate votes for a clean continuing resolution. The Congress is constitutionally obligated to appropriate. The president deserves appropriations so he can carry out his agenda. What are we going to do on 9/30 when that comes? And so I think the president's right to focus on this because the filibuster has consistently put the administration and congressional Republicans at a disadvantage, even though they're unified on basic functions of government, like FISA and like funding the government.
But the frustration on the filibuster, it's not going anywhere.
That's right.
So you're
the frustration, that is.
Well, the frustration's not going anywhere.
And
the filibuster's not going anywhere. So two things can be true there, right? And so you're kind of, yes, I get it, why the president is probably very frustrated, but there's a lot of Republicans who are not in favor of removing the filibuster because they know ultimately at some point they're going to be in the minority and they're going to want to have those minority powers.
But at the end of the day, what we've seen from the Democrats and what the filibuster presupposes is a willingness to be a partner in governing with the majority. The Democrats from Jump Street have not. The president has not had a single nominee confirmed by voice or with collapsed time. That's just the fact. They changed the rules to allow for the en bloc consideration of presidential nominees. They basically changed the rules in order to appropriate because the Democrats were not going to fund the Department of Homeland Security at basically any price. That is the same thing, the same recognition that ultimately we hope that Republicans come to as we see more and more episodes of Democratic maximalism and the pressure builds to pass what is the president's number one priority, which is to Save America Act.
And the president has not been able, to be fair, the president has not been able to break Republicans on this, right? On getting rid of the filibuster. There's a lot of frustration in the administration with Thune, John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, on his unwillingness and ability.
I said frustration with the filibuster.
Yes, I am not putting words in your mouth, but you are not the entire administration. And I think, and the president has also not been able to break that fever, the fever in favor of the filibuster.
I think the support, if there were to be a vote, is closer than people anticipate. You're right that there are challenges to getting to 50 votes to get rid of the filibuster, but at the end of the day, we're going to keep pushing and keep trying to get that done. And this latest imbroglio over Pulte, Clayton, and FISA is part and parcel of the president's efforts on this.
So take us behind the scenes here. We're Punchbowl News. We are really interested in the machinations behind the scene of what happens between this administration and Congress. Trump, as you kind of noted, more frustrated than ever with Congress on some of these issues. Your job is to work with and lobby senators and members of the House to support his agenda. How do you approach that?
Well, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think, the Pulte Clayton evolution has certainly occupied a lot of people's attention. But while that was happening, we struck an agreement with the Congress and the Democrats and Republicans to pass a landmark housing bill.
Yeah,
that bill is God willing, gonna be on the president's desk by the end of next week. That is the most significant piece of housing reform in decades. You can kind of have these modest disputes on the one side and work hand in glove to achieve shared priorities on the other. And I think that's part of what we do. It's part of what my team does. And I think we've been successful on it just this week and pretty consistently.
Yeah, I mean, the housing thing is a big accomplishment for the administration, for the corners that were involved, which included Elizabeth Warren, Tim Scott, Maxine Waters, and French Hill. I mean, that is a wide...
a lot of opinions.
And also just a wide spectrum of ideological considerations. I mean, talk about that for a second. How'd you get that done?
Well,
it was a long road. The road to housing was a long road.
There are a lot of puns here. We'll try to avoid them for the benefit of your listeners and viewers, Jake. But fundamentally, it starts with presidential leadership. Congressional action on this, I think, began when Tim Scott and Elizabeth Warren did the great housing bill markup, came out of the committee unanimously. That was sort of the foundation. The institutional investor piece came in when the president called for it in the State of the Union. A lot of different interchange over what the structure of that would be, how it would look, what fundamentally it would look like at the end of the day. In administration House negotiation on. Obviously the bill came out of the House in its original version with a much stepped down institutional investor ban, which is the president's primary priority in this package. Ultimately, we were able to work with the leaders team, the speaker's team, and Hill's team to get the provision stepped up in a way that was acceptable to the administration. The Senate's taken that. Few different, gives, puts, and takes. CDBG-DR was obviously one of the big headline issues there. But at the end of the day, everybody sort of came to the table and came to the shared realization that we want to get this done. And I think it's on as easy as it can be.
It'll pass next week at the House.
That's right. I feel pretty confident.
I want to ask you one last question, FISA, and then we want to turn to Iran. Right now, we'll see what happens with Clayton and the what's going to happen with Pulte. But if Congress sends the president a short-term FISA extension, should members assume he will sign it or veto it?
He's called for one, so I do think it's a reasonable assumption for people to know that the president would sign it. I believe that to be the case.
And do you worry at all that the administration gets blamed if there isn't an extension of FISA and something happens? There's we're talking about America's 250. We've got World Cup happening. I mean, there's a lot of things happening.
Summer, a lot of travel. Yeah.
I think, God forbid if something does happen, the responsibility is clear. The Democrats have blocked an agreement that they agreed to. They themselves agreed to this. This is a bipartisan agreement that they are currently blocking over an appointment. And so if that fact becomes known to the American people, I think we have a very strong case to make that it is them who are playing politics with national security and behaving irresponsibly.
You are not in charge of foreign policy.
Definitely not.
But there's been a lot of action on the world stage. And the president and the Iranians have signed an MOU to deal with ending the war in the Middle East. I want to know the administration's position and your preparation. If there is a deal, Congress thinks it should have a say, and there's existing law that says any nuclear deal with Iran needs to come through Congress or is privileged and could get a vote in Congress. Is that something you're preparing for? And do you expect Congress to have a say here?
Well, I'll leave whether or not the final agreement, which is obviously under discussion and consideration,
it might not happen. We don't know yet.
As to whether or not it would be subject to NARA, to the Office of Legal Counsel, and the various national security attorneys within the administration.
So you don't at this point know whether it will be subject to NARA.
So I don't know that.
Yeah.
But I think NARA does not provide for privileged consideration, so there's no sort of way to force it to the floor. Of course, if the Republican leadership felt that they wanted to bring something of that nature up, we would have a dialogue with them. But I would be surprised if there's a floor vote ultimately on the final agreement. But ultimately, we're prepared for all eventualities.
You would be surprised.
I think it has similar politics to bringing up an authorization of use of military force, which we haven't seen in quite some time. It's a complicated vote for a lot of people, and definitely complicated for Republicans. And while we're prepared for that, I wouldn't anticipate something like that going forward. But of course, that's not my decision. It's a decision for the congressional leadership.
Speaking of congressional leadership.
Yeah, let's talk about it. We, in this morning, in our AM edition, reported that John Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana, stood up and said that the president is taking shots at our Senate Majority Leader, John Thune. This gets to the largest bit, which we've kind of already been talking to about Congress and the White House. But we've written about the fact that Trump and John Thune don't even seem like they're talking. Why is that split so pronounced now?
Not to get into the president's private conversations, but I can very much assure you that the talking is going on. What I would say is that there's a big disagreement over the filibuster, but at the end of the day, we're all working together to achieve the same objectives. I'll go back to, more CRAs, rescissions, crypto 1, probably a good shot at crypto 2. There is a point of contention over some of this stuff, but ultimately these members and the president have a good relationship, a strong relationship, and he's a trusted partner in helping us carry out our agenda.
So you have confidence. You would say that this administration still has confidence in Thune as leader.
John Thune was elected by a vast majority of his conference on the second ballot. It's not for us to say or sort of intervene in those deep dynamics, but of course, I think that there's a lot of confidence there built on shared relationships and a shared sense of accomplishment.
We have a bunch of stuff, and we're running out of time that I want to talk about going into the future. Highway. We talked about housing. Highway. The White House had a big success, a big win in the House version of the highway bill with this Railway Safety Act, which was a priority of the White House. Is something that you, I believe, worked on when you were working for now Vice President Vance in the Senate. This was an amendment that effectively provides for 2 conductors, among other things in trains.
Two men in the cab. They're not necessarily conductors.
Okay,
but
okay. You pushed it over the objections of Sam Grades of Missouri, who is the chair of that committee. Does this bill get done before Election Day to the president's desk?
I think there are a lot of complications in the Senate, and the Senate is not as far along as the House. I do think there's a good opportunity to move the bill in the House before the August recess. Of course, we're encouraging expedition from the Senate. I thank you for pointing out the success there. I did think it was an overwhelming bipartisan vote.
It was
54-11, so huge support on the Republican side. 2/3 of the Republicans on committee. So I think what ultimately that series of events proved is that this bill is an asset, pulling the train of the highway bill forward. And of course, we want to see expeditious consideration in the House and continue to work on what ultimately is the final result in the Senate.
All right, let's talk about reconciliation.
Sure.
You all have done 2 of them this Congress. Impressive feat by far.
Never doubted him for a second, right?
A lot of twists and turns.
Six Votoramas, but who's counting?
No one who's counting. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was up on the Hill this week saying he needed another $350 billion with a B for the Pentagon in a reconciliation bill. Seems incredibly unlikely to us that you can get this. Do you think you can?
Well, I think House leadership certainly very eager to do another reconciliation bill. I think in order to hit the president's budget of $1.5 trillion, there's going to have to be a mandatory component. That's how the administration was so successful in hitting an unprecedented level of defense expenditure last year. I do think there's a great opportunity to do reconciliation. I do think Recon 3.0 is alive and well, and I think as a sort of parallel track to that, the administration is going to be seeking supplemental resources from the Appropriations Committee. Certainly want to engage both sides, not looking to supplant some of these traditional processes, and we'll ultimately see how that all shakes out. As Jake, as you mentioned previously, supplemental resources are going to require Democratic support. So we'll see if there's a desire on the Democratic side to work with us to get those over the finish line. But I think at the end of the day, no matter what, we are seeking to create the strongest and most effective military ever. And the president's put forward a bold and ambitious $1.5 trillion defense budget. I think we got a great shot at getting it done, and we're going to work very hard to do that.
You said the House is eager, and I'm getting the hook in a second here, but you say the House is eager. The Senate's not eager. I mean, John Thune has said, you need to find me something that could get to 51 votes and 218 in the House, and I haven't seen that yet. I guess the question to me is, if you do a Pentagon supplemental spending package in reconciliation, is that narrowly tailored? Does that turn into a grab bag of things that people want? What else gets looped in there? And that would appear to be a risk to me, right?
I think that's a risk with any reconciliation bill. I think one of the things that drove, you could say that the second reconciliation bill was a triumph with strategy over tactics. It was a sort of a bumpy road to get there, but the fundamental strategy of a narrow, tailored immigration funding bill was successful.
Well, that's for sure.
As the baseline here, you want a narrow, tailored, defense-focused bill, but I'm sure we'll have to work with the Congress on some offsets and things of that nature. The Vice President's Fraud Task Force has been doing tremendous work, working with Attorney General Todd Blanche, whom we hope will be confirmed expeditiously.
Acting Attorney General, but I think
acting Attorney General, correct. But I think fundamentally, like you work with the Congress to get the defense number that you can, and they can get 218 and 50, as the leader has said, and there'll be some offsets in that conversation, but ultimately, we're looking forward to having as scoped a package as possible.
How much thought are you putting into the lame duck already?
So, I think the way to think about the lame duck is as an opportunity for pretty significant policymaking on the back end. A lot of these bipartisan conversations that we're having now, and again, I'm not suggesting that these will fall in lame duck. I'm just suggesting there's an opportunity to pursue them in lame duck if they're not successful in the run-up to the August recess, and the very, very, I would assume not much more than a CR comes in post-August recess. I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah.
But I certainly think that'll be an opportunity to sort of wrap up some of the bipartisan conversations that have happened with the urgency of a deadline at the end of the year.
Like what? So you're talking about the highway?
You could see highway. Our hope would be that permitting has made significant progress, but you could see permitting.
They could use them more times.
So, I think, does a final version of NDAA come in that time? Does a final version of government funding come during that time? What goes on that vehicle? What is and isn't there? What does the ash and trash look like? I do think there'll be a lot of sort of bipartisan conversations that have gone on. Certainly other administration priorities that we would look for in lame duck.
All right, one last question. There's only one right answer here. You worked for the HFC. You were chief of staff for members in the House. You have a deep House history. You've also worked in the Senate for the now vice president during his tenure in the Senate. Which one is better? House or Senate?
They're separate and coordinate branches of the legislature, and they each have their features and their follies.
And their bugs. Yeah, I got you.
Oh, all right. We will leave it there. That's a political answer to end on. James, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Presented by the American Petroleum Institute. In Washington, people talk about America's future. Across the country, millions of energy workers are ready to build it. But a broken federal permitting process is delaying the pipelines, transmission lines, and energy projects America needs. Congress must pass permitting reform to keep America strong, energy reliable, and our economy growing. Because when America builds, America wins. Learn more at permittingreformnow.org.
All right, Jake, that was a great interview with James Braid. Very excited to have the panel here. We've got John Bresnahan of Punchbowl News, Igor Bobic from NOTUS. And
what a great crew this is. This is a real. Brez is here on the to celebrate the Knicks parade
making
today.
a huge sacrifice.
Did you see? I don't know if you saw this. We haven't talked about this off air, but they basically shut down the streets and said no more people can come in.
That's awesome.
And they're doing security checks on the sidewalk.
Yeah. So I don't think you would have made it.
Well, we are very happy you are here. All right, let's talk about James Braid. I got to a ton of stuff here. I could not think of a better guest. Brez, what was your top takeaway?
Well, first of all, Braid is very good. He's very, he's the softer side of the Trump administration.
It also helps that he's been with a lot of these guys on the Hill for a long time.
I thought the Thune stuff was fascinating because you asked him the question, do you still have confidence? And he got to it, but it took him a little while. And as we're talking, Thune is on the Hill, says he hasn't talked to the president since the weekend. Or since, and it didn't talk to him about Trump's posts on Clayton and what he did and all that stuff. I mean, so we keep writing about this. There's clearly a problem there. Do we think that Trump wants to get rid of Thune or something?
I don't know.
That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen anyway, but there's a serious strain there. And it's more than just policy or process.
What do you think, Igor? I mean, you guys are more Senate people than me.
Braid's got a really tough job.
Toughest job,
really
maybe.
Let's
stipulate that for the entire combo. Yeah.
I mean, look, there are all these Republicans who are leaving. And frankly, they don't give a shit anymore. They're tired of being pushed around. And they're not going to take this sitting down. Trump announcing I'm canceling this hearing, that was just another stick in the eye of the Senate prerogative as an institution. And I think that it's going to get bumpier.
But do you think Trump is doing this? We've had this debate internally a lot, and we wrote about it this morning. We didn't write about it directly, but we mentioned it. Is Trump, this all stems from the filibuster, right? Like much of this.
It all stems from the fact that Trump doesn't like to be told no.
But I also he likes to stir things up. There's that element of that.
For sure.
But if people are too comfortable, Trump doesn't like it. He doesn't. He's the president and he's driving the conversation.
At the end of the day, he's hurting his own agenda.
Yes, but I don't think he really cares about that and I keep saying this to Brez. Well, first of all, let me put it 2 questions. Does he want to get rid of Thune? And is he even thinking about that? I don't know the answer to that. Number 2 question is, does he realize that if Democrats take the majority, this is going to seem like a cakewalk?
I don't think he has that on his mind right now.
Right.
Like the only thing on his mind right now is I want to get my way. And all these other factors, I don't think he's thinking about. I think that would he like to get rid of Thune and potentially put in somebody who's more supportive of him? He'd love that, but he can't do that. And right now, right now it's about, throwing as much shit on the wall as he can to, kind of get his way up there.
See, I was pushing senators, Republicans yesterday on, is Trump, he's always hated the filibuster. His first term, second term, so he's 1,000% consistent on it. I think he has a real valid point in people who don't look at or not focus on Congress. Why is this happening? Why can't the majority just do whatever they want in the Senate? And he's a non-Congress guy. And he's, I don't think, my thought was yesterday when we tried to explore it, is he trying to get rid of the filibuster? And now we are re-upping this because he knows he's going to lose the majority and he's got to get stuff done now. Okay. So if you got rid of the filibuster now, there's a window to get things done now. But people are saying they don't think Trump thinks like that. He just wants what he wants. And, look, I think there's a lot of people in the American public who wouldn't disagree with him. The Congress doesn't function well. And the filibuster, the Democrats are complete Democrats on this. They have 48 votes to get rid of it. Yeah.
The filibuster's not going anywhere, right?
Not right now. It's not.
Right now.
Not today.
And I think the question I have that I was unclear from James that he didn't really answer is how do they get out of this, right? We are now, Pulte's going to be put in as acting. This is something Democrats have said is a non-starter. What is the end game here?
I'll say this. The one thing he said that kind of not flew under the radar, but the one thing he said that was interesting to me on this was that the president would sign a short-term FISA bill. So if I'm, and he said this before, but that was before he said he,
I didn't find that particularly surprising he would sign it.
Yeah, I know, but just after this whole dust up, I think it's still interesting that he would sign it. I mean, I don't know how we get out of this. I don't know. I mean, the president has to drop one of his complaints, I would say, because I don't think this guy in SDNY gets confirmed, as not with the speed with which Trump wants. I think Pulte being at DNI is not going to go away. Clayton is tied up in all of this. SAVE Act is tied up in all this. So I don't know where you go.
They got to go, I think, give him another vote on the floor on the SAVE Act. Just do a full court press on the SAVE Act. At least show them you're trying.
But that's not a great member management
Thune's
thing.
point is they've already had these votes.
I know, but what else are you going to do?
But if it fails, that's not going to resolve the issue for
And
them.
then it makes people vote. It puts people up for a tough vote, but on both sides of the issue. Because, by the way, there are Republicans. This is the thing that's going unsaid here. There are Republicans in the House who will not vote for this version of the SAVE Act.
If it passes the Senate, it'll pass the House.
Let's shift gears here because I do want to get to Iran. I thought what he said in particular about the idea of whether or not there would be a vote here. We wrote it this morning, Brez, about a lot of the hawks that you would typically expect to be very, have a real strong point of view. Have not found their voice yet. Whether, you look at Tom Cotton, you look at Roger Wicker. What did you make of what Braid said about the fact that there's not going to be any vote on Iran?
He said it's unlikely. He didn't say they're not. I'm not surprised, particularly. We've been arguing about this internally, but I never thought there would be a vote on Iran. Now, he also noted that it'd be up to the lawyers at the White House and the council because there is no deal yet. There is no deal yet that would trigger a NARA in their view, which is, you could make an argument strictly that they've already done that. But, anything to limit sanctions would trigger that. But I never thought there would be. He mentioned AUMF because there's no AUMF vote either, which I thought that was fascinating. I don't think there will ever be a vote. I'm not sure there will be
There's not going to be a deal.
There might not be.
But Igor, you agree with him that there's, I didn't realize that it doesn't have privilege.
Which means Republicans could stop it.
Right.
If they bring it up.
You're with Brez on this.
I'm with Brez on this. Thune earlier this week also said the Senate is not required to take an affirmative vote on it. So which means that they could vote on it or they could not vote on it or just do nothing. I think they're going to do nothing because this is going to be a really tough vote.
The Democrats would bring it up and there'd be a cloture vote and, and they'd say, well, that's the vote on it. So, but the House may not,
There is zero chance, if it has no privilege in the House, there is zero chance Mike Johnson's going to take it. Unless this thing is just such an unmitigated disaster that he comes to an agreement that is such an unmitigated disaster for Republicans that they somehow figure out a way to bring it up. Mike Johnson sure is not going to do it.
All right, last topic before we get to what's not going to fly this week, lame duck. I thought it was very telling the number of things he was able to kind of list out. And I mean, we all know lame ducks are usually lame, not a lot gets done, but there was several things that he ticked off, permitting reform, among a lot of others, saying we could actually get something done here.
Permitting reform is it's still there. Everyone knows something needs to be done. Both sides want something to be done. I did, it's something to watch because it is kind of stealthy out there. It's creepy.
On backward.
I saw, Capito was working on a bunch of other ones. The highway bill I thought was interesting.
And those would probably go together.
Those would probably go together. But the whole thing is, will there be? Please don't government shutdown. Because I think if the Democrats win the House, this changes the whole dynamic about government funding. They want to kick it into next year. I mean, if the Democrats win the House, they're either going to be shut down in December or it's going to happen next year, but it's going to happen.
It was interesting. He did mention a continuing resolution.
He did.
Yeah.
Which I found interesting because he's already thinking about a CR. And of course, there's going to be a CR.
There's going to be
But I think the big X factor here is what happens on Iran funding. If they, try to push through this huge bill, if they try to go through the appropriations process, what happens there? Democrats are going to go for it.
There is zero, and I know we have to move on, but I'm of the view there is zero chance they're going to get, they could forget about doing it outside of reconciliation, a Pentagon supplemental. There's no chance they're going to get the money for that. They're going to get the votes for that, rather.
Yeah, sure, $350 billion.
Yeah, right. The question is, can they get it through a reconciliation bill? They'd have to, I think they'd have to offset it in some way, some part of it, and I don't know. I'm not skeptical. I'm just saying I think it's really tough.
We are to the closing segment of what's not going to fly this week. Igor, we'll start with you.
All right, so I brought my soccer socks right here. What's not going to fly is not caring about this World Cup because, come on, we're hosting for the first time in nearly 40 years. Team USA plays Friday. We're going to win. We're playing Australia. We're going to kick
in a big
asses.
match.
Yeah.
Huge match.
After a great opening match.
And the team is looking phenomenal right now. If you're celebrating, you want to celebrate something in a bipartisan manner, go to a bar, watch with everybody. It's fun.
It's been fun to see people out in DC. Like I will say, I mean, you go just walk around, you walk in, and people are like, they're amped up about it. All right, Brez, how about you?
I'm going to go with my heart appropriations. There's not going to be a shutdown this September 30th. I'm not saying there's not going to be a shutdown in the rest of this year, but there ain't going to be a shutdown. They're not, neither side, it doesn't benefit anybody for September 30th shutdown. It's not going to happen. Republicans are kind of throw it out now, but it's not going to happen.
Bookmark it.
Yeah.
Bookmark, and not 0.0.
I'm not associating myself with that. I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just saying, okay, I've heard you. It's not going to fly that there is basically no communication between the Senate Republican leadership and the White House. I mean, this has just been absolutely stunning. And by the way, yesterday we asked Thune, I don't know if you were there, Igor, but when are you getting briefed on this deal? You know,
He's never saying next week.
well, he's
Yeah,
got to
but
say, I
that's
hope
where
so
we're-
soon.
Right.
But like, this is wild.
Yeah. All right, mine is quick and easy. The filibuster's not going anywhere, guys. So as much as the president wants it to be out of here, I don't see that happening anytime soon. All right, Brez, Igor, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Jake, what a great episode with James Braid, getting to discuss what's next on Trump's agenda, the relationship with the White House. I mean, we covered a lot of territory.
Is he the tallest person we've ever had on Flat Day? I mean,
Him or John Thune?
or Eric Schmidt.
Yes.
We've had a lot of tall people. We're not tall.
Not us.
You and I are not tall, but we're aspirationally tall. I thought it was really interesting. We touched on this in the conversation with Brez and Igor. Already thinking about the lame duck. Does not think there's going to be a vote on Iran. He's going to have a busy week next week. The housing bill is going to be up in the House. I think that should pass. He thinks it should pass. There's clearly some momentum behind it. We're still dealing with FISA. House is in next week. There's not much time left. They're in next week. Yeah. They're in a couple more weeks before the July 4th recess, and then they're gone, and they come back, and they're gone for August.
And really unclear how the Senate gets out of this jam with the White House when it comes to DNI, when it comes to FISA, a lot that we are going to be tracking. That is all from us today. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up and share this episode with a friend. Thank you so much for watching.
Have a great day, great weekend, and guess what? The 13-year-old version of myself is incredibly happy that the New York Knicks are the world champions. Stay safe, everyone.
There's only